You're standing on the deck of a carrier in the middle of the Pacific, thousands of miles from home. And you know that in a few hours you'll either reshape the world or die trying. Every sailor around you feels it too, that crushing weight of national survival resting on this single morning. The planes are fueled, the bombs are loaded, and there's no turning back. This isn't about glory, this is about whether your nation lives or slowly suffocates under economic strangulation. The Americans don't know you're coming, but you know that once you strike, everything changes forever. The suffocation that led to desperation. Japan in 1941 was a nation being slowly strangled. The empire had poured blood and resources into China for years, trying to secure the raw materials and territory necessary for survival as a modern power. But America responded not with military force, but with something far more insidious: economic warfare. Oil, steel, scrap metal, the very lifeblood of Japanese industry and military capability, were cut off through escalating embargoes. The American noose tightened month by month. Japanese strategists stared at projections showing fuel reserves draining away, showing a future where the Navy couldn't sail, where the Air Force couldn't fly, where the entire war machine would grind to a humiliating halt. The psychological pressure was immense. This wasn't just about power or expansion anymore. This felt existential. Japanese leaders saw two paths: accept complete subordination and withdraw from China in disgrace, dismantling the empire and becoming a second-rate nation at America's mercy, or strike hard enough to buy time, to seize the resource-rich territories of Southeast Asia before the fuel tanks ran completely dry. The decision was born from fear masquerading as boldness, from the terror of national extinction dressed up as strategic necessity. The gamble that couldn't fail. Admiral Yamamoto Isoroku understood the stakes with painful clarity. He had studied in America, had seen the industrial might firsthand, had walked through factories that dwarfed anything Japan possessed. He knew that in a prolonged war, Japan would lose. The mathematics were brutal and undeniable, but he also understood psychology and timing. If Japan could deliver a devastating blow to the American Pacific Fleet, if they could cripple American naval power in a single morning, they might buy 6 months, perhaps a year, to consolidate control over the Dutch East Indies, Malaya, the Philippines. All those territories dripping with oil and rubber and tin. The plan required absolute perfection. The attacking force would need to cross thousands of miles of ocean undetected, launch strikes with surgical precision, and destroy American battleships before they could respond. The emotional burden on Yamamoto was staggering. He was ordering an attack he believed was necessary while simultaneously understanding it might doom his nation. He felt like a doctor amputating a limb to save the body, knowing the patient might still die from shock. His officers and planners threw themselves into preparation with manic intensity, drilling pilots until they could hit targets in their sleep, calculating fuel loads down to the last gallon, obsessing over every detail because they understood there would be no second chance. The silence before the storm. The strike force departed in absolute radio silence, maintaining total communications blackout as it navigated through the northern Pacific. 6 aircraft carriers, 2 battleships, heavy cruisers, destroyers, submarines, an entire fleet moving like a ghost through fog and rough seas. The sailors felt the weight of secrecy pressing down on them. One intercepted message, one spotted ship, one broken radio protocol could unravel everything. They lived in a state of suspended tension, knowing they were committed to a course that would either be remembered as brilliant strategy or catastrophic miscalculation. As they drew closer to Hawaii, the anxiety intensified. Intelligence reports had to be perfect. If the American carriers were in port, the attack would be devastating. If they were at sea, the mission became far more complicated. Pilots sat with their thoughts, writing letters they hoped would never need to be delivered, checking equipment again and again, channeling nervous energy into preparation. They weren't motivated by hatred of Americans. Most had never met an American. They were motivated by duty, by the knowledge that their families and nation depended on their success, by the psychological need to believe this desperate gamble would work. The younger pilots felt invincible and terrified simultaneously. The veterans knew enough to be simply terrified. The attack that changed everything. The first wave launched in darkness before dawn on December 7th. Pilots climbed into cramped cockpits, engines roaring to life on pitching carrier decks. The fear was overwhelming, fear of mechanical failure, of getting lost over the vast ocean of anti-aircraft fire, of dying far from home in cold Pacific waters. But training took over. Muscle memory and discipline overrode the hammering hearts and sweating palms. They formed up in the pre-dawn darkness and turned toward Oahu. As the sun rose behind them and the island appeared ahead, the psychological shift was profound. The abstract mission became concrete reality. Below them lay the entire American Pacific Fleet, battleships lined up like toys, completely unprepared. The rage of months of embargo, the humiliation of being backed into a corner, the fear for national survival. It all channeled into focused aggression. Dive bombers screamed down through anti-aircraft fire that grew thicker as Americans scrambled to respond. Torpedo bombers skimmed just above the water, pilots fighting to maintain altitude and angle while explosions bloomed around them. Every hit felt like vindication, like proof that Japan could strike back against the nation trying to strangle it. Ships erupted in flames. The Arizona exploded with such violence that the shockwave could be felt in the air. Pilots watched men jumping from burning vessels and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no remorse, only the desperate need to complete the mission and get home alive. The victory that guaranteed defeat. As planes returned to the carriers, the immediate emotion was relief and exhilaration. They had done it. They had struck the blow. The American battleship fleet was devastated. But even in those first hours, some felt unease creeping in. The American carriers hadn't been in port. The fuel storage tanks at Pearl Harbor remained intact. And perhaps most critically, they had united and enraged a previously divided America. Yamamoto's famous quote about awakening a sleeping giant would prove prophetic, though whether he actually said those words or they were attributed to him later hardly mattered. The psychological trajectory of the attack was already set. Japan had won a tactical victory while ensuring strategic catastrophe. The empire had gained the time it desperately needed to seize resources, but it had also guaranteed that America would pour its full industrial might into total war until Japan was completely defeated. The sailors and pilots who survived Pearl Harbor would spend the next 4 years watching their initial advantage erode, watching American production overwhelm Japanese capability, watching the empire they had tried to save burn to ashes. That morning of December 7th represented both Japan's greatest tactical achievement and its most devastating strategic blunder. The men who flew those missions carried that contradiction for the rest of their lives: pride in their skill and courage, and the haunting knowledge that their success had doomed everything they fought to protect.